Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're literally mapping out the logical flowchart of the Arabic language. You know, if you've ever wanted to just completely understand how Arabic is structured right from the ground up, skipping all the confusing clutter and getting straight to the core mechanics, well, you are in exactly the right place today.
We're taking a highly structured, kinda classroom-style look at the fundamental building blocks of Arabic linguistics. Honestly, think of this explainer as our chance to reverse engineer a massive, beautiful piece of architecture right down to its foundation stones. Basically, we're going to categorize every single articulated word produced by the human tongue. Sounds huge, right? But we're going to break it right down.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today's session. We're going to hit 5 key areas: roots of articulation, meaningful versus meaningless words, single versus compound structures, nouns, verbs, and particles, and finally, building complete sentences.
All right, Section 1, Roots of Articulation. This is the very foundation of spoken Arabic. So, before we even touch grammar, we have to recognize language as a literal physical action. Our base concept here is lafz, articulation, and it refers strictly to words produced by the tongue. Basically, any sound you intentionally form with your vocal cords to communicate, that falls under lafz. Now, a cough or a sneeze, yeah, that doesn't count. Intentional articulation is the starting point of our entire linguistic decision tree.
Moving on to Section 2, Meaningful versus Meaningless. This is where we start categorizing those raw sounds.
All right, so here is the first major fork in the road on our flowchart. Every single utterance produced by the human tongue goes into one of 2 buckets. Over on the left, we've got madu. These are meaningful articulations. They have an established, widely understood meaning. And on the right, we have mahmal, meaningless articulations that completely lack meaning. So the core question is simple. Does the sound mean something or absolutely nothing? To really cement this concept, let's look at an example. The Arabic word kitab means book. It's a classic example of maldu, right? It has a clear, established meaning that Arabic speakers agree upon. But imagine for a second someone walking around 500 years ago just yelling the word Pepsi. I mean, back then, long before the famous beverage was invented, that specific collection of sounds meant absolutely nothing. It would have been classified strictly as muhmal, just completely meaningless chatter. So language relies entirely on established understanding. Which brings us to Section 3, Single versus Compound. Time to start stacking the building blocks.
So from here on out, we're completely ignoring meaningless sounds. We only care about the meaningful ones. And now we have to ask, how is the word constructed? Well, a meaningful articulation can be mufrad, meaning single. It's composed of just one word, kind of like a single brick. Or it can be murakkab, compound, meaning it's composed of more than one word linked together. Think of that like a wall made of several bricks.
And this brilliantly illustrates our point. Take our earlier example, kitab, meaning book. It's just one standalone word, single or mufrad. But if we say the phrase Rasul Allah, which translates to messenger of God, well, now we've combined 2 distinct words. It crosses over into being compound or murakkab. The logic of the tree just neatly categorizes everything we say.
Next up, Section 4, Nouns, Verbs, and Particles. Let's categorize those single words. Now, if we follow that mufrad, that single word branch of our tree, we find that it splits into exactly 3 buckets. And literally only 3. Every single meaningful standalone word in Arabic is either an ism, which is a noun, a fi'l, which is a verb, or a harf, which is a particle. That's it. Whether you're reading a simple street sign or, studying complex ancient historical texts, these 3 buckets contain every single standalone word you could possibly ever look up. So the crucial point here is just how remarkably efficient this system really is. At its core, the Arabic language is highly structured and honestly beautifully mathematical. If a word is single and meaningful, it just has to be a noun, a verb, or a particle. There are no surprise categories hiding in the wings to trip you up. And for a learner, that gives you a tremendous sense of order and control when you're trying to master new vocabulary. You just sort them into one of these 3 mental files in your brain. Finally, Section 5, Building Complete Sentences, the ultimate goal of compound articulation. So, we're shifting gears to Principle 4, moving back up to the murakkab, or compound side of our tree. This is where words finally join forces to do the heavy lifting of communication. And just like we did with single sounds, we have to evaluate these compound structures, because simply mashing words together isn't enough. The combination has to be evaluated for its actual usefulness. So compound articulation split into two types: mufid, meaning beneficial, which successfully expresses a complete idea, and gair mufid, meaning non-beneficial, which expresses an incomplete idea.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it frames that word non-beneficial. When Arabic grammarians say a phrase is غير مفيد, they're not saying it's useless. They just mean it's an incomplete thought. Like saying the tall boy is considered non-beneficial because, well, the listener's left hanging. The tall boy what? But saying the tall boy is running entirely resolves the thought, making it a complete, beneficial sentence.
All right, to tie everything we've learned together today, here is your ultimate cheat sheet. This table beautifully summarizes our entire classroom session and maps out the linguistic journey we just took. Just look at how the 4 principles map an utterance straight through the flowchart. The word kitab is meaningful, it's a single structure, and it falls under the noun type. Meanwhile, Rasulullah is meaningful, sure, but its structure is compound, and its type is a non-beneficial phrase, simply because it isn't a full sentence on its own. Literally, every single thing you articulate can be mapped on a matrix exactly like this.
Which leads me to this final provocative thought. Just listen to the conversations happening all around you today. If you were to take those everyday words, those daily utterances you make without even thinking, how would you map them onto this precise Arabic decision tree? Was what you just said mufrad or murakab? Is the sentence you formed mufid or ghair mufid? I promise you, once you see this underlying mathematical structure of language, you can truly never unsee it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the incredible architecture of words.